The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command of the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses. 40,000 dead Americans.
We were young and soldiers called to dedicate our lives in the name of God and country. Do what's just, boys. Go do what's right. A hot band of brothers waiting on our chance to add one more page unto the victory dance. Here am I, Lord, send me, send me. Victory lies in the spirit of the lives of the men who died for me.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
This is Michael Broderick, Marine Corps veteran, actor, and Gallant Few board member. You are listening to the New American Veteran. Now here's Carl Monger.
It is my great pleasure today to welcome to the New American Veteran, a Marine Corps veteran named Ian Sephton. Ian is a nationally recognized serial entrepreneur. We're going to learn here in a second exactly what that means. And decorated former Marine. And he is doing some amazing things in civilian business. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
All right. So when were you in the Marine Corps?
I was in the Marine Corps from 96 to 2000.
So you were kind of like me. You were one of those tweener guys? I
was a Clinton Marine.
Ah, okay. So things were changing when you were in. Force was drawn down. And tell me a little bit about your Marine Corps experience. What did you do in the Marine Corps?
So I was a part of the 1st Marine Division, 3rd Amphibious Assault Battalion. I was a Amtrak crew chief. So I drove the big metal Vietnam-era water tanks. A lot of people, when I say Amtrak, they think trains, but these are actually tanks that honestly shouldn't be in service today. I mean, at least when I was in 96 and through 2000, they shouldn't have been in service. These things are very old, but that's our ethos of being from land, air, and sea, and so that was the sea component.
Yeah, nice. Are they still using those things?
They are. In fact, there is a AAAB that I believe is starting to get some traction. But just like any of the Department of Defense major projects, they always go over and they always take longer than they're supposed to. So they were talking about that when I was in, and every now and again I see postings from some friends that have stayed and finished their 20 years because that's what it would have been. I would have retired this year. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to think of? When I go back to reunions and I see some of the active duty guys like battalion commanders, they look like they're 12 years old. It's crazy because I remember them being way older when I was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go into the Marine Corps?
Well, so I was a pretty good athlete, and so my senior year in high school, my head was probably 3 times the size of the door it was trying to get through. So I thought I was pretty good, and I didn't think rules kind of applied to me. And so I was in Algebra 2 and had not prepared for the course. There was kind of a class thing where we had to go up and do some math on the board, and I refused to do it. The game was to take these dice and roll the dice, and you'd have to do the problem. I just said I wasn't going to do it, and the teacher wouldn't let me go. So I actually ended up throwing the dice at the board. At least I was trying to hit the board, but I ended up hitting the teacher in the hand, and so I got kicked out of that class. And so the thought of going to a junior college when I had full ride offers to major universities was just not in the cards. And I just said, I needed to kind of change my mindset. So I decided to jump off and join the Marine Corps.
Did that help you?
Yeah, it's, there's these different, I think, inflection points through your life where certain things happen and you don't realize it maybe at the time, but when you look back and have a little bit of time to kind of look at the context of what was going on, it was a huge help for me. It created great amount of intestinal fortitude to kind of power through things that I think, especially nowadays, I hate to say it, but millennials, they don't have a lot of grit sometimes to get through some of these tough challenges that we're faced with. So, I feel like, I may not be able to compete with some of the entrepreneurs in pure IQ, but in terms of just intestinal fortitude, I'll take them any day of the week.
So when you left the Marine Corps, did you go in, this is my enlistment, I'm going to get out, I'm going to go to school? Or did you, what was it kind of if you can share why you left the Marine Corps and then what you did right after?
Yeah, I contemplated doing they added a Marine enlisted commissioning program that I was being pushed very heavily and hard to go into. And I almost did. I almost did that, but I wanted to give football another shot, and so I ended up getting out and playing a year at Chaffey College, and then just my family and work life just started kind of taking a life of its own. So yeah, that was kind of the time where I decided to get out. I enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps, but I just had bigger things that I wanted to go after.
So then after you left, did you tell me how you ended up going into business? And as you went to, where is Chaffey College? Is that
Chaffey,
Arkansas?
No, Chaffey College is in California. It's a JUCO, one of the better JUCOs in SoCal.
Okay.
So I started working. I had to support myself and my family. I was at the time I was newly married with young ones, and so I basically started working nights and going to school and playing football during the day. It was a lot to handle, so I only could do one season of that. But the big thing was getting into logistics. So my last 6 months in the Marine Corps, I got assigned to the S4 logistics group for 3rd Amphibious Assault Battalion, and I learned a little bit about procurement and moving things from point A to point B. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. When you get out of the Marine Corps and you're creating your resume, there's not a lot of things for 50 caliber machine gun expert, right? Like, I mean, that doesn't really translate to the civilian world. So I really focused on the logistics. In fact, I kind of pumped up my resume to be more of that than what I really did. But I ended up landing a role with DHL and quickly moved up the ranks. I was a regional director for them at 25 years old, and my peer group was 35 to 40. So I kind of, at that point, I started to see that I had the gift of leadership, and I was really good with numbers. And so I started to apply that. I worked at DHL for 5 years and then had an opportunity to go to USC to take on the division of the business side of the university, which is about 185 million in total revenue. And while I was there, they were going to pay for my MBA. So I was able to kind of do a double whammy. So I got my undergrad paid for by GI Bill in the Marine Corps, and then I got my master's paid for through USC through the being able to work there. So, and then it was at that point when I graduated with the MBA, I'd put a deadline for myself that I was going to jump and start my own group, and that's what I did.
Just out of curiosity, did you ever run across an Army veteran named Joe Yorio when you were at DHL?
No, I can't say I have.
He was in a leadership role there, but I'm not sure what the timing was. He and I served together a long time ago. So you never know. You got to ask.
Yeah.
So you moved in DHL, you moved up into leadership pretty rapidly. And then at the university, was it military background? Was it some of the experiences that you brought forth from the military that helped you jump into those roles? What do you think that was?
Undoubtedly. I mean, what I feel like and I don't know, I was in the Marines, so I don't know how this translates for the Air Force or the Coast Guard. But I know in the Marine Corps, everything has a place, and I know organization matters, and I know planning matters. And so I'm a relentless planner. I'm anally organized to the point where I have a planner and everything. I know what I'm doing before I start the day. I never get up and go into reactive mode where I'm answering emails and calls and I'm flustered from the day I get up. I don't allow my day to control me. I control my day. So those are things that I think I was trained very well in the Marine Corps. The leadership obviously is huge. I mean, even in a enlisted role, as you kind of move up from Lance Corporal to Corporal and you become an NCO, there are times where you're given, opportunities to lead small groups of men. And I was able to take that and translate it very easily to the private sector. I think you have to be a little softer. I think you have to have a little higher emotional intelligence to manage in the private sector versus the military. It's not do it because I said. It has to be getting people to buy into the why they're doing things. But I feel like that's natural human nature. And I like knowing why too. So I can empathize with the person wanting to understand why they have to do a job or a role the way they need to do it. So yeah, I've never really had an issue translating the skills I learned in the Marine Corps into the private sector. I think, and what I like to look for when I hire is I'd love to hire veterans. In fact, we just hired one about 3 months ago for one of the companies I have an interest in. But I also like to look for people that have played competitive sports, team competitive sports, because I find that those are the two best employees that I've ever managed or come from either of those skill sets or both.
Do you hire direct, or do you work through a recruiter or somebody that finds people for you?
Well, so each company is unique, and I know we haven't gotten there, but for like Synchromatics, which is a mobility tech company that I'm running day to day, I'm the CEO of. The engineers are very difficult to find. Full stack tech engineers with front end, back end, and can do all the things that we need them to do are really tough to find. So we've used recruiters for those roles. We haven't needed to use them for business development or project management. Those are, I think, a little easier to find in the open market, but you'd be surprised at how long it takes to find a really good engineer. There's a lot of people that claim to be engineers, but when you test them and go through the process that we do here, you find that their problem solving isn't at the level that you need it to be. So recruiting helps. So
I want to jump into your companies here, but before we do that, I want to go back to what you just said about the skill set. Mm-hmm. One of the problems that I ran into when I left active duty was I didn't have the kind of degree that companies that I interviewed with wanted. And engineering is a pretty good example of something that's pretty specific, but you also said that they've got to have the right problem solving skills. When somebody leaves active duty, and I'm fishing here for maybe you can give some advice to somebody as they're planning their exit from the military, they've got this tremendous GI Bill benefit that's going to pay for their college. And I've actually had veterans that use that just to pay the daily bills. They enroll in school just so they have money to pay their rent, and they waste their education right off the front. Other ones, they really don't know what they want to do. What would be your recommendation for somebody to make sure that as they go through that process, they select the right thing and then they move towards a career that's going to be rewarding for them?
Well, I can speak to my experience. When I got out of the Marine Corps and decided to go to school, there was no option. Even the GI Bill, I think, has changed quite a bit. In fact, I think it's great what they have today versus what I had. What I had was, I would call it like a partial scholarship. So it was enough to kind of enroll and pay for some of the school, but I had to take out a little bit of student loans, not to handle the school, but to handle my living expenses. So I had to work, take out a little bit of student loans. I decided to get into business. It was what I wanted to do. So for my degree, my undergrad is in business, and my master's is in business as well. I think if you have an engineering mindset, you should know that. You should, and that's a commitment, because there's generally a lot of math. And I know from an enlisted standpoint, a lot of folks that joined, at least the friend group that I had in the Marine Corps, weren't the best students. Not to say they can't do it, but if you know what you're good at, know what you're not. And a business degree can be applied in so many different areas. So that's why I like it. But I would even say that if they don't want to go to school, don't go to school. I mean, there's other things you can do, trade schools, there's start your own business. I mean, I don't think a degree is a requirement. While I would say that the degree has been helpful, I don't think it's what's defined me as a leader. I think the Marine Corps was way more important than any of the degrees I've gotten at USC or at Cal Lutheran, where I did my undergrad.
Nice. Okay, so tell me about your company. So which one did you start first, or did you throw something into a bag and say we're going to start 3-4 companies at the same time?
Yeah, no, I wish it was that well planned. No, so initially I started a group called the Brandsetter Group. I founded it with one of the co-founders of Houston's Hillstone Restaurant Group. So Houston's Bandera, they're a very well-known national chain. And we were looking to buy a regional restaurant, take it national, because he had that experience. And so I was going to handle the business side, he was going to handle the operation side. And so we started looking at that. And then, like anything in life, you go down these different trails and you have a lot of, right or lefts. And we, made some good decisions and some bad ones, but we got into a lot of different things. And that's kind of the genesis of Hangar 202, which is the investment arm. So the way I try and explain it to people is whatever I have an interest in and I want to do, I just do. I'm not constrained by rules or, someone writes a book and says you should only focus on one thing. I don't believe in it. I go after what I feel like I want to go after. So Hangar 202 is the investment arm. We have a major investment in Cure Pharmaceutical. They do drug delivery technology that delivers active drugs into the body through your buccal cavity through an oral thin film, which is like the Listerine thins, but with drugs on them. We invested in a company called Otto's Tacos, which does LA-style street tacos in Manhattan. We've got 3 of those. We invested in Synchromatics, and I've taken the leadership role of the CEO, which we're tackling mobility. We actually sold 71% of this company to a European space technology company 2 years ago, and I'm kind of performing the earn-out period. And then the Brandsetter Group is just hospitality. We've created restaurants for Barnes & Noble. We've helped consult on national brands. I mean, we've done a lot of different things. So I don't really have one job. I have like 5 jobs, but I love it. Every day I love it.
How do you manage all that stuff? When I have my own small business, which doesn't get much attention right now because everything that I do pours into this nonprofit. How do you manage all that?
I'm very, so time is the one resource that I truly value above everything else. And so I make sure that my time is being used on high value opportunities. And so I don't get into the minutia of projects. I hire well around me. I set up the strategic vision, and I want to come back to that in a second, but I set up the strategic vision and then I help course correct, but I let the team that I've got, that I've hired and I trust to do the actual work. I do not try and micromanage at all. I don't think you can grow businesses if you are a micromanage. You can grow a lifestyle business, but you can't grow something that's doing 20, 40, $60 million a year in sales. So that's kind of been how I handle it. All my day is like planned out. Like today, I blocked this out, but I mean, even time for reading and strategic thought, just thinking, which a lot of people don't put any time into, which blows me away. I block out on my calendar so that I really kind of hold to it. And, if I'm not there, if my energy level's not there, I'll cut it out. I just won't do it. But at least it's blocked and I know, and I can prepare for it. So what I was going to say though is, when you talk about entrepreneurs, a lot of times everyone thinks to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a visionary. And I actually think that's sort of true, but you could actually fill a role of a team of entrepreneurs by being the integrator. And being the integrator is somebody that can operationally make the trains run on time and understands that everything needs to go from point A to point B. And I feel like veterans understand that because they understand missions and they understand how to get from, the planning phase through the execution phase. And they know that every plan doesn't survive the first contact with the customer or the enemy. So there's, I think, a lot of things that can be used from military experience in entrepreneurial, and it doesn't mean you have to think of an app. In fact, I think that's the worst idea ever. There's plenty of apps. We don't need more apps, but business models and, finding somebody that has a really good vision, you like the business model, and being their integrator, because a lot of times that's a different mindset that visionaries don't have. So
that's interesting. Yeah, that's great. That's powerful stuff. And I think that could create some opportunities for some veterans out there to kind of take that kind of mindset and look towards those opportunities.
Definitely.
What's next for you?
Well, we're in the last phases of another acquisition. We're buying 100% of a company up in San Francisco. So I can't really announce what that company is, but we're in the final stages of that. I've got a 24-month-old and a 4-month-old, so they take up a lot of my time. But
that's life-changing when that happens.
Yeah, it really is. But I don't really have like a 5-year plan. I look at opportunities and see where I can apply myself and where I can add value. And I'm getting better at saying no, because as my time has become more limited, you have to say no to things. So I'm really trying to make sure everything fits through the filter of what I want ultimately, which is to be happy and to be creative. And so I really try to stay out of things that I don't think are going to add value to me, even if they may financially add value.
So kind of in closing here, what would be your top 2 or 3 things that you would say to a veteran that's leaving active duty today?
Don't underestimate the skills and the experience that you got from working in whatever MOS you had in the military. Because I could take anybody's job description from the military and I can translate it into how that would be a great opportunity for them in the civilian world. And you brought it up earlier, if you have an opportunity to go to school, finish, get your degree, earn the degree. Don't have that be the one reason why you don't get that next promotion, because you're going at someone else and they've got a piece of paper. And there's times where, it's very tough, whether you're working and going to school, but, just power through it. Power through it.
I'll put your links up here at the end of the show. How can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Ian Sephton, my full name. I'm also on LinkedIn. I highly recommend anybody looking for, advice for career. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly responsive on that. Maybe not the same day, but
they've changed that now. So you don't have to, I think, you don't have to know the person's email address to send a connection request to them. It's a brand new change. Yeah,
I think that's true. And, I accept almost everyone that asks, especially on LinkedIn. But, except unless you're selling me something in the email. I'm not looking to be sold, but if you need advice or help, I'm definitely there. And, veteran causes are really important to me. And it's one of the reasons why I donate time at shelters. I just think that we need to be doing everything we can for these people that have done so much for this country. And so I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for connecting with us. Thanks for the work that you do with veterans. Make sure that you check out our Marine Corps programs called Raider Project. If you check raiderproject.org, you'll learn some more about that. Might be something that you'd be interested in getting involved in. Just a real quick plug for us. And you talked about this earlier when you said you don't know about the Air Force and the Coast Guard. I don't speak Marine because I'm a former Army officer. Infantryman, jumped out of planes. I was a Ranger. I can talk to infantrymen, paratroopers, and Rangers all day long, but when it comes to Marines, I don't share the same background. I don't have the same scope of experiences. So if somebody needs to be challenged on maybe their lifestyle or decisions that they're making, I can challenge a Ranger all day long. Less successful challenge in a Marine because they can very rightly say, you don't know me, you haven't been through what I've been through.
Right.
But with the more Marines that we pull in, then we can have those kind of conversations. So I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Carl. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. You as well. That beautiful rendition of Taps is a public domain recording created by a soldier or employee of the United States Army and as such is not eligible for copyright protection in the United States. Kenny Thomas' song Send Me is used by permission of Kenny Thomas. All other work or recording is original work or used by permission. This has been a presentation of Gallant Few's The New American Veteran, a proud member of the Heroes Media Group. Material may not be used without permission. All rights reserved.